followers. Today we're joined by Heather and John Kahan. They are a dynamic author couple. So we've got Heather here, who is a first-time author, mother, grandmother, and she brings her love of storytelling and traveling into her writing. John is also an accomplished photographer, a seasoned author. He has such a passion for capturing the beauty of the natural world, and together they have just built the most awesome life filled with creativity and adventure and stories that they wanted to be able to pass on. Today, we're going to be talking with them a little bit more about their experience of writing and publishing their book, This Is Your World Too. So welcome, Heather and John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you and hear more about your experience behind the book and then kind of bringing it to life with Palmetto. So first, I would love to just know what inspired you guys to write This Is Your World Too together?
This book has really been kind of a culmination of a handful of passions that John and I have together and also individually. And it's probably been, if you really think about it, it's been maybe several decades in the making just because these passions of ours have kind of evolved. But, we've been life partners for almost 40 years, and travel has always been something that we both have been drawn to. And so we've had the privilege of traveling around the world, literally to all 7 continents together, mostly over the last maybe 15 years or so. But even as young adults, when we traveled together, we found ourselves really being mostly drawn to the natural beauty of the world and wildlife. And that just is something that both of us really have loved from the beginning. And so that, in combination with John's passion for photography, which is something that he's been doing since he was a kid, it's both his passion and his skills he picked up from his dad. And I've always been, kind of a, casual writer. Whenever we went on these travels, I would keep a journal. Most recently, I've done blogs. And so, those two things kind of have always been out there. And then, in parallel to that, as we've developed a family together, we have 5 children. Sadly, one who we lost to sudden infant death syndrome about 22 years ago. So we had started a foundation in his name for research behind sudden infant death syndrome. So kind of putting all that together, and then most recently becoming grandparents in the last 9 years of 3 wonderful grandchildren. The timing seemed right. We knew we kind of had all of this wonderful photography, specifically animal photography, and we always also found ourselves kind of drawn to this parent-child combination. Whenever we saw that in nature, we both just sort of, became, it kind of tugged at our hearts. And so we kind of had this inventory, really, of beautiful photography over the years in all of our travels, and had a ton of these parent-child photographs that John took. And it's been kind of a recurring theme for us. We've done projects in the past, developing note cards and such from his photography. And prints that really honed in on that parent-child combination. So it all just kind of seemed to come together about, I guess about 1.5 years ago, when we returned from our largest trip yet, where we thought we need to do something with all of this, with our passions for photography and writing, and then just the travel and the animals. And so I don't know exactly how the original idea sort of came about, but it just did. And then, of course, once we started mentioning it to people, oh yeah, you definitely should do that. So that's kind of how it all came together. And John had to convince me a little bit. He's a little more ready to jump in on things than I am, but he convinced me, and off we went. That was about 18 months ago, I think. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And clearly so much heart behind the writing process. Let's fast forward to the publishing process. Once you decided that, you wanted to be able to publish this book and to share it with the world, going through that process, what are some common misconceptions that you can share with other, authors or people interested in publishing that may be out there that you guys kind of ran into?
Well, I've published 3 other books, and in the process, I realized that there's a lot to the process. It's not as simple as, okay, you have a great idea and great photography and you put it together and away it goes. I mean, every word, every letter, every piece of creative needs to be looked at through different eyes. There's, the editing process, the creative process, the publishing part of it, the marketing part of it. It's not a simple process by any means. And you really have to think about every element. I love creating things personally, but my love is in photography and not in the writing and the spoken word in a lot of ways. And I'm blessed. I have a partner who writes and articulates incredibly well, and it's what made this come together. But also, you need a good partner on the publishing side to keep you orderly and moving forward. I mean, we were lucky in the connection we created with Palmetto. It's really a perfect fit for us, because uh, for us, they stepped you through a process. It's definitely longer than I think any of us anticipated. You want to kind of do it and get it done once you decide you're going to do it. But it's a methodical, thoughtful process to ensure that we don't make mistakes along the way. I can assure you, if you look at my other 3 books, there are spelling errors and grammatical errors, and they're not published right, and they're not on the right websites, and there's just so much that goes into it, that ensuring that you have a good partner, not just Heather and I, but a good publishing partner along the way that can work with you, and step you through it, that are experts in their field, certainly makes this process easier. And frankly, anybody can do it. It's not like, oh, well, you have to be a seasoned writer to do it. In fact, I went to seasoned writers to ask them, hey, I want to do this one differently. And they gave me different path, one that didn't work for us. It was like, okay, well, you send it in and then you wait and then you pitch your idea and then you go through it. And I think there's a process for everybody. You just have to figure out what that process is for you directly. And for us, it was a combination of, we wanted to certainly tell our ideas and our approach, and we know what we're good at, but we don't understand all the other elements of it. And you kind of have to have a diverse team of people with different ideas. We had a creative lead that worked with us, a friend of ours that's excellent and creative and understood the creative eye. Heather, who is terrific at writing and really making things come alive with the spoken word, and my photography. But then you get a publishing partner like Palmetto that really understands all the other elements and how to put it together. And you get a win-win combination. You have to be patient through the whole process. I don't think I'm very patient through it. But it does take time. But the outcome is frankly spectacular. We're really, really pleased with the output.
Beautiful. You talk about time. I know you guys experienced a timeline change through the process. Talk to me a little bit more about your expectations around that originally and versus kind of how the process played out.
Well, I don't know if we expect. I'm not sure what we expected. I mean,
We had much of an expectation,
Yeah.
other than we probably did think it was going to be faster than we thought, because I think we maybe had hoped that we could, catch the holiday season last year. And I think that was kind of driving, at least it was driving me a little bit like, oh, we got to get this out. The holidays are coming. Maybe we can make some sales, et cetera. But I think, once we got into it, it was a little eye-opening. We realized, okay, it doesn't just kind of work like that. I mean, each iteration, was important in and of itself. There was really, there was value, obviously, in giving it the time and thought, because I even found, just for myself, that every time I kind of reread it, I wanted to change a few words here and there. And I think, it's like the end product ends up being, 1,000 times better than, than my original draft, right? So each iteration was, a bump of improvement. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, the patience is important, because that's what gets you to the best product in the end. And in the end, it was, I think the whole process took us, 9 months, maybe. It was great. I mean, it was, in the moment, it felt like, oh, come on, we can do this. But looking back on it now, you realize, okay, yeah, that was necessary to get to the best one product.
Yeah, and probably for me as well, like, you fall in love with your work and you think, okay, this should go just as you think about it. And we had enough content for 2 books, and it's hard to cut things out and decide, okay, this is what you want to do. I mean, already my head was on, okay, well then we'll have This Is Your World 2 too. We'll do the second version of it. And I was reminded by Heather, like, hey, this took a lot to get to this point. Let's get this one out and learn and see where we go. But I think it's a lot of fun if you take the right attitude through the process. It can be maddening if you're trying to hit a deadline or you're trying to like, that's not what we're trying to do. I mean, we are trying to, leave something for the next generation and create a message that's inspiring for our kids and our grandkids, for families all over the world to do better things around the world. And I think that's what came out of this. And if we had done it shorter, I don't think that would have occurred. It just wouldn't have been as good as it is today. And the same hand, at some point you have to cut it off too, and you have to say, okay, we're going to move forward. And we got there. I think the other thing that was interesting for us is Heather had this vision of a board book, and we were given a lot of advice about board books and what the costs are and how to deal with it, and et cetera. And it didn't work for a children's book. But we were frustrated because we've seen lots of children's book with board books and never giving up. Well, it turns out there was a pathway to do a board book after we produced the hard copy book. And in hindsight, we probably wouldn't have produced the hard copy book. We only would have produced the board book. But we learned how to do that. And we took another path that wasn't even in the outline of what to do. And I'm really glad we did, because we now have, it in the board format, which I think really works well for children and what's there, as well as hard copy, soft copy, etc. And our environments were all work. And then we got it within the price points, I think, that matter for children and families.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up cost, excuse me. I'm glad you guys brought up cost. Was publishing the book more affordable than you expected or less? What did that look like?
That's a good question. As I indicated, I have published 3 other books. There's no way the processes that I went through on those books, which were more self-publishing books, they were 10 times the cost of this. This had to fit a children's book, which by itself levels a price point. We wanted to use it for charity, which also levels a price point, because we underwrite the whole thing. I mean, 100% of it goes to charity. And it was much, much less expensive than I had anticipated. And part of it is the expertise that we brought to the table. We did a lot ourselves, but we had really, really good fit with Palmetto and the connection points. Like the cover of the book was AI inspired, but it was nowhere good enough to be created for a book. And then humans got a hold of it and drew it and made it come alive. And that was the Palmetto piece of the equation, just as an example. And so, but all the words were Heather's, but the outside design was theirs, and the photography was all mine, and so all the ingredients are there. You have to write the right partner, and I think there's a size that fits everybody in the equation. Could we have spent more money? Easily. Could we have spent less money? Potentially, but not as efficiently and affordable. And this fit what we were trying to get accomplished. And I'm quite actually amazed by the cost structures. It's actually easier and less than we thought. Now, a lot of that comes from the tools and the capabilities that are available today, but a lot of it is the efficiency and the rigorous process that was put in front of us. Like, we have to hit deadlines, and if you hit those deadlines and you do it with thought, you don't get lots of rework. Then you keep within a budget, and then it works. And it worked for us. It worked really, really well for us. And we never thought we'd make $1 gazillion for charity. That's not what we hope to do. Well, it'd be nice to do it, but it's not the intention. But on the same hand, we don't want to lose our shirts either. And so we had a price point that we wanted to put into it, and surprisingly, it was within the realms of what we were trying to get accomplished. Still a ways to go to do the marketing and the things that are there, but the whole publishing process fit really, really nicely in what we were trying to do.
So you guys are such a special pair, because not only are you co-authors, but you're also married. What was that like in publishing a book together as a couple?
Well, yeah, I mentioned earlier, I kind of hesitated at first. We're both pretty strong personalities. I think, once we kind of figured out that what we were bringing to the table were kind of two pieces that then went together as opposed to kind of overlapping. So as long as we kind of stayed in our lanes, it was all good. Obviously, I mean, the photography really is what inspired, kind of this whole thing, right? We had this asset really of these beautiful photographs over the years, and so, that was kind of the first step, was to kind of choose the photography. We did that together. We kind of went through all of the beautiful photos that we had, in our on our server here, and chose, our most favorite ones. And then I kind of went off on my own really and took those photos and, put the words together with it. So that part was pretty straightforward. And then of course we had to bring it together, and then it became kind of, some design decisions and things like that. And that's where our third party, our creative consultant, a friend and colleague who we both respect, and admire greatly, he was able to come in and kind of, if there were moments when we were like, well, I like this, well, I like that, his opinion kind of took over, because he does, he just has the strength in those kinds of things. So I think for the most part it worked well. And then, kind of the whole business side and all the details associated with that, that's John's bailiwick. I kind of just let him run with that. So again, I think, we know each other well enough to know what our strengths are and what our strengths are not. And so we, know when to kind of back off and let the other person take the lead was probably the most important thing. But heck, I mean, we've been married almost 40 years, so we've learned that somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I think Heather said it well. It's, you stay in your own lanes, know where to go to connect together. It's funny that she said that the photography is what brought it apart, and I would have said it's her words that brought it apart, because I was just so inspired by our last trip, and she had done a blog for the family, and it wasn't meant for anybody else, and it just blew me away. I was like, oh my God, you're making my pictures come alive. And they're telling a story that it was always in my head, but I could never articulate it well. And it was fun and interesting, and it appealed to all audiences. And so I would have said it differently. I would have said it was her words that really inspired me to, take the time and think about, okay, how do I make this real? And, I was blown away by it. And to me, it's really a special book. If you take the time, it's not long, and I'm not a reader, frankly, and you look at this, it really tells a very special set of messages, and it appeals to all audiences: parents, grandparents, children, all ages. We had a small party for friends and family, and the thing that I think was so special to me was watching Heather, and every person that wanted a book, they wanted her to sign it, and they wanted her to sign it to their parents or their grandparent or their child. And that was just, she's a fairly shy person, and she was alive in that meeting, in that party, just to see, how people really loved her work, and it's really quite precious in my mind.